welcome to Fail Disclosure. Hey, thanks for joining the show today.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. What fail? Well, I messed it up already.
Well, we would say make sure no names, no specific locations or businesses, but hey, we'd love to hear what's happened in your world.
Yeah, what is your fail, man?
Well, I got a couple, but we'll just start out with this.
Let's go with the worst one first.
Or
the
build up
worst
to it.
one first. Well, it's kind of at the same time. So let's go. I was 25 years old. I'm 31 now, so it's just a little bit ago. But I was farming here in Nebraska, and I started a building company. I started building a house in Kearney, and I was farming in Mexico. So obviously,
So you're farming in the Midwest and in Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like my dad always said, it's like, well, don't take off, bite off more than you can chew, and that definitely, I was doing that, and more. So
Did not heed Dad's advice.
Yeah, exactly. So, it comes to when I was building this house. I wasn't a builder. My roommate in college was a builder. He hits me up, hey, you want to go in his house with me? I said, perfect. So I threw the money down, invested some money into that. We got it going. I was planting some crops down in Mexico prior to the house. And but midway through the house, my partner, like any, partnerships, you got some guys that can talk and some guys that, just do the building side. Well,
Right.
He was just doing the building side.
Okay.
We had a buyer come in, and he comes in and he's like, I'll give you $300,000 for the house. And the market, we hadn't finished the house yet. Basement wasn't finished. The basement was just finished. We just got the basement done, but we're just like, hell, we're probably at $395 asking price. So I'm like, he calls me up and I said, I don't know, $375 is what we can tell him. And he goes, well, we're probably stuck around $375. Would you walk me through the house? Well, my partner, he didn't walk him through the house, but guy walks through the house, comes back out and he goes, I'll give you $350 today. And my partner didn't call me back. First mistake.
Oh no.
We didn't have the yard done. We didn't have, 15,000 for sprinklers, nothing,
Yeah.
So he goes, this is he goes, I think we're going to pass. We'll get your name and number or whatever. And this kind of pissed the dude off. Didn't get his name or didn't get his number.
Oh,
No.
boom.
So
Lost.
he goes home from that day. The neighbor calls same day. He goes, we got a problem. You got a problem in your backyard. There's water shooting out of your house.
Oh God.
And the sprinkler line, they didn't solder the line. So it was spraying out of the house, went into our basement that was just finished.
No.
Bro.
And 10,000 pounds of mud was in our basement. And the same day we got the offer.
I'm dying because I'm in the process of buying a house. I'm freaked out now. I've always been on the edge and now this is helping not. So yeah, 10,000 pounds of mud and shit in the basement.
So it was one of those things where it just, we got turned around, but there was some problems with the house. And, long story short, on the house part, we were sitting a year afterwards still I was
Eating it.
So
I
what
was
did
25
you?
and I was.
What did you end up selling it for?
$255.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
I lost.
Clint had to pull the microphone away. He's laughing so hard.
Oh, dude.
Yeah,
Especially when you're 25.
I lost 75.
That's like
75,000.
I can't even think of that money now, and I'm like 38, let alone 25. So how does one get 10,000 pounds of mud out?
Well, it was actually a pretty clean. I mean, we had insurance, and it was $31,000 to have them come in, fix it, redo the floors. I mean, we did all the drywall patches and everything, but then you have to have a disclosure saying, okay, now, we have a flooded house. I mean,
right.
on top of it, so it was, it was crazy. That was a crazy time, but it was like a month going about. Go ahead.
How much at the time did you think about it? How much did it take over your thoughts? And then how many times now do you think about it?
All I say is most people go to college, which I went to college, but they get their doctorate and they get that shit and they come out of the college and they got $150,000 in debt. Well, let's just say I spent about $75,000 and I got a big, awakening into business.
You got a PhD in mud removal.
Yeah. I mean, it was nuts. So, and right after that, right when we got it fixed, I took off down to Mexico. Had it fixed. I'm like, okay, I got to go down there and do some of my crops down in Mexico. So I get down there to flip switch on the story back to when I was farming in Mexico,
right.
Same time. So I get down there. I had one of my buddies come down with me. I'm like, hey man, we're gonna be down here for about 2 weeks. Let's come down. It's it's gonna be a good time, right? So we get down there, and I came 25-year-old. I'm like,
Mexico!
It's Tuesday night, but yeah, let's go out. We got to go out, right? So I go out, and we, this is,
you got to tell all, man. You got to tell it all.
Yeah. So I drive into town. It's about 5 miles into town, and I go in there. I don't know a lick of Spanish, and my buddy's like, man, this is great. We had a couple drinks, but we had to go to the office is what we called it, and it was a strip joint. So I mean, that was what we called the office at the time. So we're like, yeah, we're gonna go hang out at the office. And so we get there, and at the door they give you tequila shots at the door for free.
Yep,
good start.
So we go there, had the shots, and I didn't. I had a couple, couple turns into a couple, but I'm not a big believer, obviously, of drinking and driving. But it was a Tuesday night, and I wanted my buddy to have a little fun. So we get, and it was crazy that
what is a Mexican strip joint like? And I kind of just wanted to say that, but really, what is it like down there? I've never been in a strip joint.
It was actually, I don't know if I believe that story, but anyhow. But no, it was really nice and real classy place, right? I mean, they were playing,
was it like Americanized, or was it like Americanized, or was it like, you're like, oh, we're in Mexico?
No, it was definitely Americanized. I mean, there were leather couches. I mean, we come in with $5 and we're sitting in VIP. So I mean, it was so
give these guys the drugs and take their money, everybody. Let's go. Those two American guys right there.
Pretty much. So we got out of there, and I looked at my phone, and I'm like, it was about 2:00, and I'm like, I said, what the hell is this U.S. number? I got a missed call from this U.S. number. I'm like, well, that's weird,
2 a.m. or p.m.?
So, 2 a.m.
Yep.
So I called the number, and we were just pulling out of the parking lot, called the number, and it was my buddy's fiance.
Oh no.
That he told her that, we're just gonna have a quiet night, and had to use my phone up on the roof.
Oh god.
And I'm like, so she's like, well, hello, and I'm like, oh shit. I said, and I handed him the phone. I'm like, sorry, bro. I'm like, sorry, bro. I'm like, sorry. I mean, she was pissed that he even came with. So we're going down.
He did exactly what he knew he was going to do, and she knew he was going to do.
Exactly. It played out.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Classic.
So it was this turned into him on the phone with her, it's probably I don't know, less than a minute. And we pulled up to the checkpoint. So at every city that, there's checkpoints going out, the guys got the machine guns or whatever,
This just has every element for a terrible ending.
Yeah. So I'm over here, man, I see this guy every day, I know this stuff, Rancho San Jorge, 8 kilometers this way, all stuff. And I literally pulled up there and I said, here it is. Well, never seen the dude ever in my life. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a good start, So he's like, have you been drinking? And I was like, I said, he has, I pointed at him.
Yep.
Well, I said, no, I said, he has, whatever. Well, basically he's talking on the phone with his girl at the time. And he's like, hey, honey, I gotta go. The cops are here or whatever. I'll let you go. I'll call you back. So he hangs up the phone with her.
Oh, no.
So, this is the first night he's in Mexico. So circle back around.
How long were you going to be there?
Everyone's first night in Mexico.
How long were you going to be there?
Yeah. It was like 2 weeks.
Oh, my.
Okay.
So he's like, he's like, well, no big deal. I said, he's been drinking, and well, he's like, can you get out of the vehicle? So we both got out of the vehicle, and all I could hear was them saying that they were going to call for translators. And I'm like, at this time, it was like 2:30, maybe 2:45, because we were sitting there forever.
No bueno.
And I'm just thinking, like, if they're calling in translators on a Tuesday, I'm going to jail.
Yep.
Like, this is not good.
No bueno.
And I'm over here like, oh shit. So those guys are like, yeah, we're going to call in translators and all stuff. So I pulled out my wallet.
Yep.
And I opened up my wallet and I was like, I said, this is all I got. And it was 200 pesos. And at the time it was $12.
Yep.
And both the guys with the machine guns started laughing, took the 200 pesos and just told me to get on home.
Oh, shit. It worked?
I was like, yeah. So I was like, I had a real bad time at the house flooding or whatever, all the stuff. And I get down there, I'm like, luck's coming a little bit.
You were due. You were due, man. You were due. That is amazing. I've like never, you always hear about these stories, but like you never actually
even the
talk to
honestly the balls that do it and just be like, all right, I'm just gonna go straight to this point.
I don't know if I
here's my money, and then it'd be like, and I actually don't have that much.
Right. 12, $12.
200 pesos.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
It was probably such a low enough amount that they were like, oh, you gotta let him go. This poor schmuck.
Yeah. You're like, I just lost a lot of pesos on a house with like a lot of mud, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and
nuts.
The thing was then we didn't have service. So we were driving out of town. We didn't have service. So this was like an hour and a half until we got back to the house, and I had like 4 missed calls or like voicemails and stuff. Well, my buddy's wife or fiance at the time
freaking out
called like the cops in the U.S. Like she was like, they're going to jail. Like they called my parents, and I'm like, oh my god.
So now everybody knows.
Let's just say I still got invited to the wedding, but it was a pretty it was a pretty close call that I didn't get invited to their wedding.
Rest assured, I have a lot of friends that I haven't seen in a long time because similar stories. But that was epic. $12 and you're riding dirty.
Is that the end of the story? Because I have some questions.
Yeah, that's the end. That's
okay,
the end.
So
that one.
Yeah. Okay. So. All seriousness, I'm just thinking about myself. I was in that position.
Right.
How did you know to take out the money? Like, I would have thought, is that in itself going to get me in more trouble? Like, what was your thinking that's like, I got to try this?
Well, obviously, it wasn't my first rodeo. I mean, obviously, I wasn't the one that, was usually driving. It was usually Mexican Mennonites that I partnered up with, so we all looked the same. They were the ones driving. So even like taking fuel out in the checkpoint, they would always be like, oh, we could fine you for this. Well, they just told me, hey, to take 200 pesos and just hand them, like shake their hand on the way out. Like if anything, any questions, like they won't say anything. Just give them 200 pesos and they won't say anything. So it's like, that kind of got back into my mind after recircled around. Like, I probably should have just done this from the start, but but no, I think that's anything. I mean, those cops are so corrupt that in the sense of if you had anything or, you know, I'm not saying drugs or anything like that, but I'm saying if you had anything wrong, like you're going to get a ticket for it. Or I mean, the first time I went down there, we had beer cans sitting all around the chair. Like, I mean, because you can booze cruise down there.
You, man. Let's go to Mexico.
Yeah, you can booze cruise down there, but you can't as long as the driver's not drinking. So that's the rule down there. Is open containers.
Gotcha.
Law. So we pulled up there, and they were like, "What?" We had a 4-wheeler in the back, and they were like, "What's the VIN number on the 4-wheeler? Does it match your papers?" That's how strict they are down there. Because after 2017, with all the cartels and stuff, the cops are really, really strict.
Right.
So the cop opens up the side door to ask us about the VIN number. All these beer cans are going out. I'm like, what the hell? This guy, you can imagine, this guy's with the machine gun. He's picking up these beer cans and throwing them back in the pickup. This is like only in Mexico.
Just hitting you on that with it. Yeah. He's like, you're like, here's your 200 pesos. Let me go.
Pretty much.
Were you gonna ask another?
Well, actually, I was just going to ask you, have you ever paid anyone off?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh,
like, have you ever dropped some money to get, like, I mean, just thinking like a better seat at the restaurant. Have you ever,
yeah. I do that a lot, actually.
How do you know how much to pay somebody?
I probably go overboard with it, but it will. I mean, growing up in the trailer park, like, money talks, man. And, nothing obviously like super illegal or whatever.
But I mean,
like,
you were like,
I did it the other day. I was at I went to go pick up my Hy-Vee groceries, and, I think we were late or like whatever. And I flagged down one of the carriers, and I was like, because they told me to park, and I could just tell. I was like, oh man, I'm going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And I just flagged one of them down, and I gave him I gave him a 20, and I said, hey man, if you can help me out here. And he was like, and I was going to tip him anyway, but not $20. And he's like, his eyes just like lit up. But the best part was, so he just runs and he gets it and he brings it back, and he's filling up my car. And he's just sweating his ass off. And he goes, and I put this apple juice in. He goes, hey, can I have some of that apple juice? And I go, what? He goes, can I have apple juice? And I just go, let me check if I got a cup. Didn't have a cup in the car. And I said, yeah, like with the whole pandemic, probably not. And then for some reason, I had like a couple of ice cold bottles of water in there. And I said, I do have water. And this kid goes, no, I don't drink water. I hate water. And I was like, all right.
What is this world?
He's like, okay, have a good day. And I was like, that was the strangest thing.
Okay, so my flip is, has anyone ever paid you off? Like, has anyone ever handed you some money to get a better thing?
Nah.
That's never happened to me.
No.
I've never had someone slip me like some money.
I will say definitely after I worked in New York City and worked with some of the unions for like events, I mean, they just expect it. Like, we had to use some elevators, some freight elevators, and I just always had problems with these guys. And then finally my boss comes over and he goes, oh, and he goes, what size of shoe are you guys? And they shouted out, and he goes, okay. And he just gave them these brand new Nike shoes. And then all of a sudden the elevator, which was supposed to be open till 5, but it closed at 4. It was like open till 6. And then every day I was just giving these guys stuff, and I could get anything done. I mean, that is definitely New York. Like, that's how you get around there.
Okay. So now back to our caller. Do you do this practice at all in the US, or is this just like what you do when you're in Mexico?
No, it's more Mexico than anything. So, I mean, sometimes if it's a long night and it's, blurry or, from a blackout night, or something, and the girl will want to pay the next day, I'm like, I don't know how this works, but anything like that. Besides that, no, I think that's a it's more of a Mexico thing. I mean, I was just over in Nigeria. And it's kind of the same thing over there. It's, I mean, any third world country, I mean, they're just, it's just a different world. I mean, it's crazy.
I've definitely also found that donating to somebody's like a charity. So if I'm like working with you or whatever, and I was like, is there a cause or anything? And if you make a donation and it's 100% free and clear of that person, that'll, bump you up the queue or something if you're trying to get something done.
Such an interesting series of economics. It's like a part of the equation, and yet it's never tracked.
Yeah. It's wild, but definitely, man, New York City, and that goes, if you're listening out there and you've never been to a big city, like you want to use a restroom or something like that, like, you can slip a 20 real quick and get to the restroom or whatever you need.
Now this is the business side of me, but like, what's the future of payment of that economy, of that payment system as we go cashless? Like
Venmo for sure.
So now we're just like, hey, I'll Venmo. Is it more awkward to tip someone through Venmo?
No, I think I've done that recently too. I was like, what's your Venmo? And
I want my groceries delivered faster. What's your Venmo?
I have done that with like Uber Eats and DoorDash, because they take so much money from the tips.
Yes.
That I don't do a tip, and then I just put in there like, I'll tip you when you get here. And then when they get here, I'm like, hey, what's your Venmo, or whatever. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Oh, okay. All right. So back to our caller again. Sorry. I'm on these little tangents. Yeah. So, okay.
You opened up a whole new world for us.
Yeah.
How do we take over Mexico with tipping?
Yeah. So are you, do you go to Mexico anymore? Is this like a frequent thing? You still farming? You done with that life?
No, that was, basically, after farming in Nebraska that year, and that's when the market crashed, and, we didn't necessarily lose any money compared to the house, but it was just like, I probably, after expenses and paying all the employees and stuff, it was like, I was down like $100,000 to 25. It's not bad if you say it fast, but it's like, that's,
and,
what do you do? What do you do now? And then I'm like, well, I went out and started 3 more businesses. So
yes,
I might have to call back, but that's what I did.
And
I maybe climbed myself out of the hole, and
maybe it was maybe it was a blessing in disguise that you didn't make that extra $100K and go to Mexico with it, because who knows what would have happened then, right?
Or the things you could have done and got out of.
Running a cartel down there now. What was that?
I was like, or the things you could have done and got out of with $100,000. Hey, you know what though? Your story at the end there of just like, I think that's like such a great message that you were down, you're out, you failed.
Yep.
You failed, but that set course for you to be like, have the grit in a weird way. Like you got to come back out of that. And I think that's happened to a lot of people in that way. Like a lot of successful people will tell a similar story of being like, the first thing put me down.
Yep.
And then like second or third thing got me out. Mm-hmm. Would never have done the second or third thing without the first thing.
Yes. You find yourself almost like you're like, I got to be bulletproof at this point. And I've seen so much crap.
And you're backed into a corner.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're down 100K as a 25-year-old, I have to imagine you felt like you were a little bit in a corner, world against you, on your shoulders. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I will say that one of the things that I've had this conversation with some entrepreneurs about in the pandemic and everything going on in the world, and I'm probably a little bit guilty of this, but like you actually feel more comfortable with your back against the wall. Right. So especially, you're running these businesses and they've been performing or doing okay. And then this hits and it's like, oh, like I know this world. I know everything is burning around me.
Yep.
I'll be
It's how we started.
Yeah. Yeah. True. So of your businesses now, you said you have 3?
No, I've started 3 and I only have, I have 2 that are kind of just stagnant. I'm just kind of full time. I farm and I do video, so full-time videographer.
Yeah, and you got a pretty good varied background. So let me ask you this: out of all the things that you've done and learned in different sorts of businesses and whatever, what is like the number one lesson or insight as you think back to all of those things that you've gained from all of your experience?
You just have to, your passion has to drive you. At the end of the day, it's what you are doing. After all that happened, I started a nonprofit, called, and cause my mom got diagnosed with cancer then. So it was like, I'm in debt and at the end of the day, it's like follow your passion and just follow that drive.
Yep.
And it's like, just keep your head down and just keep moving, So it's like, I always tell myself, I'm like, if people would know what was actually going on in my life and actually was going wrong with my bank and people calling me all the time and stuff, it's like, people wouldn't be able to handle it. But it's like, and then that's why everybody says, he's like, man, you live a crazy life. And it's
Yeah.
awesome. You know, it's like, actually, I got a green screen in my backyard. I don't go places. It's just,
yeah. No, we feel you over here, because that is the thing of like, there's, you know, people see the good parts, and you know, there's entrepreneurs or running businesses or whatever. There's a lot that you got to carry, and there comes a certain point where you just don't want to put that on other people, right? Like you don't. You know, everybody's always like, oh, you need to talk about it, and, you know, whatever, I don't know, people have therapy or whatever it is, which is good. Go for it, whatever. But, you know, what a lot of people don't realize is, you know, a lot of them don't actually want to hear those stories because they feel bad for you, or it's like almost transferring some of the weight over to other people. And, yeah, that's a burden. But, you know, in my experience, no matter what it is, you know, it gets easier over time, but, that's cool, man. And,
yeah, 100%.
Well, hey, appreciate your call today. This is great.
This is great. Yeah, it's always good to talk to anybody, but especially an entrepreneur. So thank you for that. It's good.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Bye.